Hello, I am Brian Hooper. I go by the handle Bric75 on all the daily fantasy sports sites, and I wanted to do a video on ownership, an analogy I use to explain to some some people I know how ownership works in DFS, and it's a simple analogy. I find simple analogies can help um, try to solve a more complex game. You can use a simple analogy and then kind of extrapolate from there. And so the analogy goes like this: Imagine you're in a classroom with 100 students, and you're one of the 100 students, and the professor asks the class to bet on a coin flip for $1. Let's say. A coin, as everyone knows, is, unless it's rigged, is a 50-50 proposition, and so therefore it doesn't matter if you bet heads or tails. So the analogy goes a little further, though, to bring it to DFS relevance. Is, let's say the teacher's assistant comes up to you and says, I know for a fact 99 of the students are taking heads. Or, you could even say, like, studies show 75% of college kids pick heads, or something like that. You have some basis to believe that a majority of people are going to take heads. So I built an EV calculator, expected value calculator, to kind of show how that matters. So here I have ownership of heads and tails at 50-50. The total expectation is the dollar you bet. You have no edge either way. You're not disadvantaged because there's no rake, there's no vig, or commission, whatever DFS calls it, and there's no disadvantage either. But now let's take the teacher assistant tells us there's 99. Let's just say he's an honest guy, even though he's letting us cheat. Your total expectation goes from $1 to $50, which is a huge edge. If the teacher would do this every class, you'd make a decent amount of money over time. But the point is that even though you have no edge in terms of the probability of the event, the coin flip, you have a massive edge if you can approximate ownership. So let's say it was 70%, like I said in this. There's a study out there that says most people take heads or something like that. So if you take tails, you're still going to get $1.67 for every dollar you bet, which is huge, which is a big advantage. No one has that big advantage in DFS, I think. So to kind of make the parallels to DFS, clearly DFS is a more complicated game, but you do have opportunities where players of roughly the same value and roughly the same projection have vastly different ownerships. And just by knowing nothing about the game, let's say it's NBA, knowing nothing about NBA, you can auto profit by betting the lesser owned player in that scenario. That's a huge edge, right? If a casino was hosting this bet, they would kick you out of the casino. They would blackball you. They would never let you continue to just blindly bet a profitable bet over and over again. So yeah, the player might lose that day, might lose 3 days in a row. You don't know how long, but over time, just by knowing ownership, you come out ahead. It's a powerful lesson to learn. Now, granted, you're gonna have to figure out how to apply that to a game with 9 players and different salaries and different probabilities. But even if the salaries are all true, let's say that somehow DK had a day where all their salaries were dead on accurate, that all the best minds together will be like, nope, that's exactly what the projection should be. You could still profit just by having a solid approximation of ownership. And solid approximation of ownership is not that easy. So if the ownership was wrong, right? Let's say he told us it was 99 and it was actually 40. We bet with a negative, what is it, 17-cent expectation. So the size of, getting that approximate ownership matters. But as long as it's close, you should still have an edge, even if you don't know anything about the game. I also wanted to talk about the difference between ownership. This has to go along with the approximation as well. But Fast Eddie Fear talks about this pretty frequently in his Osmo streams, where he says it doesn't matter if the Osmo ownership projections are off by 20% when the player is like 50% owned, as much as it does when the player is 3% owned. And he's dead on right, and I can prove it to you here. So I want you to concentrate on the tails the tails cell, right? Not the one I'm going to be typing into. So let's say, for example, so tails. Let's say a player's owned at 40%. We have a total expected value of $1.25, but let's say it was wrong. It was 20 points wrong, so it was really turned out to be 20% owned. The expectation is double, and it's still a good thing, but it's not as massive as when you get down to those single digit differences. It's an exponential change, and so you'll see here. So the difference between a 6% owned player, right, is $8.33 expectation, which is huge, obviously, and a 1% player, 50, right? That's a huge difference. And so you'll see if you charted this out on a graph, it would be an exponential curve, spiking up at the tail end of when ownership is low. And I'm not saying go bet a whole bunch of 1%ers tonight. This is just to show, kind of prove what Eddie's saying is like, it doesn't. If Osmo has LeBron at 50%, and it turns out he's 40%, that's not going to kill your expected value as long as your probabilities are accurate. And everything else being equal, let's just say. And the last thing I wanted to mention was about soft pricing. And Manny Laura's one of his streams this week, a couple days ago, he was complaining about how DK's pricing so soft. And I commented in his stream, I'm like, soft pricing is great. Soft pricing is good for us. And Petty Thief, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. Sorry if that's not how you pronounce it. Who's also another very good player, pro, I'm assuming. Agreed with Manny that soft pricing is not good, and I totally disagree, and I'm going to show why here. So Petty's argument was it doesn't matter if pricing was accurate, because I could still win with ownership percentages. And by the way, pricing will never be accurate, and he's right there. But let's just assume pricing is accurate. He's right. You will win. I just showed that you will win by knowing what the approximate ownership percentage is, and then how to apply that. But if salary's off, you have two ways to win, right? So now let's say the coin is rigged. Let's do a more realistic ownership percentage. Let's say 60-40. So you're beating them on ownership percentage. So now you got a $1.25 expectation. But now let's say the coin is rigged. Now the teacher's in on it too. I don't know why this classroom is so beneficial to you, but it is. And so let's say everyone thinks a coin is 50-50, which they should, but it's actually 60-40. Well, you just doubled your expectation, right? So you never want accurate pricing, because if the pricing is accurate, if salary is dead on accurate across the board, they can't really do anything wrong there. It doesn't matter who they choose, essentially. All that really does matter is ownership percentage, right? So you always want soft pricing. And luckily there always will be, because they have to release the lines earlier than the news comes out. So I wouldn't fret about soft ownership from DK personally. I think that's all I wanted to say. I know obviously this doesn't solve the game for you, but it should point some people in the right direction. And maybe I'll do some more of these if anyone's interested. Have a go.